Hi, my name is Patryk Bandurski, and I'm going to show you today MUnits from my personal experience. But first, I will introduce myself. I work for PwC Poland as a senior integration developer. I am also a MuleSoft ambassador, and I lead MuleSoft Meetup group in Warsaw. What is more, I also some of you may already know it and know my personal blog that I'm solely dedicated to MuleSoft technologies, so you can find there interesting pieces about different areas of MuleSoft products. And I've been working with MuleSoft for over 8 years right now, so it's a lot of time with this product, and I would like to share my experience counting these years that I was on this product. So what I'm going to cover today, I will introduce briefly MUnits, as we should be already aware about them. Then I will share my personal experience related to unit testing. And the next part, I will show you tips and tricks, including Postman collections, newest test recorder functionality, and as well parameterized tests. After this, I will show you a demo of this new test recorder. And after this, I will summarize all the information that I will present today. So let's start with MUnit integration. This is unit testing framework designed to work with a MuleSoft product. It's very similar to JUnits, however, it is based on MuleSoft components, so you should feel quite comfortable using MUnits. It has all what the unit testing framework should have, so a mocking component, as well as spy component, verify component, whatever we need to do a decent test. And of course, MuleSoft using a powerful data with language. We've got here prepared assets library that allows us to do quite interesting assertions at the end of our tests. Okay, so what is my experience with MUnits? I've been writing them in a couple of projects already, and I try to convince the developers that I participate in the projects to do the same. Of course, I need to spare some additional time to do them. However, it's only up to 20% of the time. But I gain additional time when some errors occurs later on. I can quickly recover thanks to this. What's more, we've got here code validation, so I can be sure that even if I need to do some urgent fix, I won't forget anything that will cause some major issue, as it's happened a lot of time. I've needed to do this. I've tried to deploy this, and MUnits were showing, no, you cannot go right there. We are failing. So I needed to stop, take a breath, and fix the MUnits or that code that I have already prepared. So it was a very good point. So I'm quite self-confident of my code that I'm producing and its quality. And this is all what I like, having the best quality code development. Last but not least, it's knowledge share, which allows new developers on board on the projects more quicker, as it can be treated as a documentation. I found myself in the same situation as well. It's helped me get to know the code much quicker with what has previous developers already done. So it's helps a lot. So what are the tips and tricks? During our development, we need to heavily test the code that we are producing. I used for this Postman and Postman collections when they are nicely integrated with a RAM that is provided by the MuleSoft, so I can just drag the RAM file onto my Postman, and the magic happens. All the requests are showing up. I can just slightly amend it so they are ready for tests. I do not need to do it on my own, and I can test my service. However, I can more increase my productivity, not only by having the request auto-generated. I can use MUnit test recorder functionality, which is new feature starting from endpoint 7.5. This is generally available right now, so you can try it on your own. I've been trying this since it was yet a beta version, and I've tried to use it in my customer projects to increase the code quality. So what this function is, it's actually allows us to debug. During debug, provide and generate MUnit tests. So we do not need to do anything special. We just do what we did before. So we test our functionality that we try to deliver constantly. And at some point, we do the same, but the magic happens. The unit tests are generated, and we can use this with this. Actually, it has all we need. It allows us to mock, spy, whatever. We will see this in an upcoming demo. However, I must say that I like this tool very much, as it's helped me at least 5 times quicker to produce tests and have this done. So it's really impressive, actually. Apart from this, we've got something called Parameterized test. It allows to invoke one test case with different inputs. So we can decide that we have some variables and we can change them according to some scenarios. The most obvious example are error handling strategies when you would like to test all different errors, like 500, 400, 404, and so on. So we can just prepare one test and just fill the parameters, so we can using one test increase the overall code coverage of our service and having all the cases tested. So this is fairly interesting feature. However, there are not so much cases that we can use it with. However, we should have in mind that something like this already exists. So this is right now time for the demo. During this, I will focus only on a new test recorder. So I will show you how it. First, I will introduce on what project I'm going to use it. Then I will run this test recorder, so you will see how it works. Then we configure what has been recorded, so we will make some amendments to this. Then I will show you what was generated, what we do not need actually to do, because it's already there. And last but not least, we will see if its test actually works, as we may expect. Okay, we've got a bunch of generated code, but if it works, yes, it works. So let's see.
For the purpose of this demo, I have prepared Banking Forex System API application that is calling FreeForex API. Let's see how it works. So this is a simple REST service that exposes exchange rates currency endpoint and it performs simple transformation before sending a request to the third-party system and transforming the response received from this system using data wave language. I've actually got this application up and running, so let's see how it works. This is in Postman simple GET request to localhost, API exchange rates /USD, and let's see what is the expected response. We've got a couple of exchange rates where the USD is the base one, and for example we can see euro and so on. So when we saw how it works, let's start recording some tests. So I stop the application. I've got here get exchange rate subflow and for this we will record the test. So let's hit MUnit and then record test for this flow. What is happening right now? The Anypoint Studio is starting up our application, and in a moment we should see a new pop-up window. Okay, we can see right now a new test recorder pop-up. As you can see, it's right now waiting for input data. What does it mean? Actually, Anypoint Studio and the test recorder is waiting for this particular tested element to be triggered. We know in our case that it is subflow that is invoked when we call our REST service. So we need to trigger this manually. However, in case, for example, such case like below, read USD rates flow, when we've got scheduler in place, it will trigger our flow automatically, so we won't need to do any additional action. However, in our case, we need to call REST API, so let's run one more time our call. So I open the Postman one more time, I send request, and you can see here the status of test recording. Now it waits for data. Now it's recording, and now it stopped. When the test recorder finishes the subflow that it was meant to record, it instantly stopped the application and marked the test as recorded. So right now we can configure this. The first screen is fairly simple. It's specify file name and the test name. I'm fine with file name. I will slightly adjust the test name, so it would be USD success, and then next. At this screen, we need to do configuration of our pre-recorded test. The first thing is to decide what is the input for our test and what is expected output for our test case. So let's start with the input. The input, we can see that the recorded payload attributes variables. We can see this down below. We do not need to collect this on our own. We've got here all. We can decide to opt out from specific parts, like so, for example, from payload. I will skip this. I do not need this, as this is empty. And the flow outputs part, we can see the payload that is expected to be at the end of the test flow. So we can see that we can mark elements of the recorded payload, uncheck this, check this. So we can do this with the payload attributes and variables, like with the flow input. We need to, of course, to carefully change those values, as if we uncheck so many elements without thinking over if they are actually needed at the end, our test, even recorded, will fail. I'm fine with actual configuration here, so I'm happy with the input and the expected output. So right now, what we can do as well, we can configure each processor that was called during the test recording. So we got actually in our case only 3 parts, but let's see what we can do as well there. Let's click currency. As we can see, the default action is not to do anything at all, but we can adjust this, so we can verify or spy this processor. I've decided to spy this to see what is before the actual currency transfer message and what is after. So we can see here two tabs, and we can actually check and uncheck interesting elements. So in the before currency, I would like to verify the URI parameter currency and as well variable currency, and after the transfer message executes, I would like to validate if this payload, the the expected payload is equals to that string. So I will leave this as default. I do not want to compare attributes and variables, so I will leave this as unchecked. And then let's go to the race. As we can see, it's a request. We can mock this component, as this is a call to a third party. We can see that we can do payload, attributes, variables selection. As you can see, we have here pre-recorded response from this system, so we do not need to as well run more time to collect this information. We've got attributes that are returned alongside the response from HTTP server, like status code, so this is very important, so I will mark them as the one to be returned. However, the variables are here not so important, so I will skip them, so the mock component will return only payload and attributes. Okay, the last part, it's rates array. This is one more time transfer message. Just for the purpose of this demo, I will present you how the verify works. So let's click verify that this call this processor was called, and I will return the leave the default settings. So we will match if this component was actually called exactly one time. So let's hit next. This is the summary window. We can see that it is divided just like the MUnit. So we start with the behavior. We can see that we have pre-configured mock, spy component with before and after assertions, set event with the input for our test case. Then we've got execution, which is obviously the flow reference to our tested subflow. And the last but not least is validation, when we can see the assertions that are going to be executed, and the verify calls that we have has as well configured. So let's hit finish and see how does the generated test looks like. And as we can see, we don't need to define this on our own. We've got it generated by the test recorder. Let's see, for example, the mock rates component. And when I scroll down to the then return, we can see that the expected return is application JSON, and it's actually loading resource from the class path. The test recorder, apart from generating this subflow, created in test resources folder with the name matching the name of the test, of course without dashes. So we can see here a bunch of files that were generated and are loaded in different parts of this flow. So let's go through a couple of them. I will start with the simplest one, which is mock payload. This is the response that was recorded when the requester returned the response. So nothing fancy. We do not, of course, need to do it on our own. It's pre-recorded. But let's go deeper. Let's verify spy, assert, attributes. How it looks, as we can see here, is a little bit more complicated data with expression generated with using asserts library. We've got here asserts against attributes. We do not need to do this on our own whole data with, so we definitely spare some time. Let's see, maybe asserts expression payload. This is evaluated at the end of our test case when the final assertions are made. Here it's a payload assertion that must equals to something. I like the equals to function actually, to be frank, as we do not need to validate each components more granularly, so I do not need to do payload.currency equals euro, payload.grade equals something, but I can just put into the equal to arguments the array or objects or whatever we would like, and it will compare it without any difficulties. Okay, so this is what the test recorder has prepared for us. The next step is try to see if this test actually works. So let's run this MUnit test. Okay, so we can see that our test has been successful. We can see here a green light. Okay, one last word, just with the summary. We need to be careful when we use this test recorder. It's definitely saves our times, do a lot of for us. However, we need to configure it wisely, as when we decided to, for example, remove the payload, untick this. Then we can end up with a failing test, as it was actually expected at the end of the flow, so the assertion was expecting it. Another tricky place are the spike components. We need to, especially around transform messages, we need to be certain what the expected response is. For example, we can have dynamically generated elements like timestamps or any kind of data that in this place we need just to make some small amendments in order to our test to work. However, this is far less to do in comparison to doing the whole test on our own. So we definitely spare a lot of time, saves a lot of time using this functionality.
Okay, so let's go to the summary. MUnits is a testing framework dedicated to Mule runtimes. It's similar to JUnit, however, it is based on a MuleSoft component that we should already feel comfortable with. It's really easy to learn. It has powerful data with library associated with this. We can increase our productivity using the newest feature included into Endpoint Studio, that is Test Recorder, Parameterized tests, and of course Postman collections. From the perspective of best practices, I tried to tell you write a unit test, as they are fairly important and can increase the self-confidence in our code that we try to deliver. Of course, try to have at least 60% of code covered by the MUnits. Of course, we do not need to aim for 100%, as we would burst our saved time. So we do. I would advise not to write dummy tests, only the ones that are really important. And I would like to thank you. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask them on the live chat.